Hello everyone. This is going to be a bit different of a video. I don't really want the channel to be like a music channel, but I think music is important. I think it's important to everybody. It's part of all our lives. With it being already June and it being halfway through the year, and because I keep a list of like my favorite albums to come out this year, I wanted to give a halfway mark and share some of my favorite music and favorite albums from this year, my top 10 favorite albums of this year. So yeah, it's this video. First I want to give a couple shout outs to a couple different things that aren't on the list. Specifically, I'll name the number that they are on the list, but I just want to get some like honorable mentions out of the way. First off is it's the 45th album on my list, and that's the album this year from XXXTentacion, the Question Mark album. I mean, I know he did, you know, some things that weren't very good, but no one deserves to die that young. For the album, in terms of the album was great. I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of it, but Infinity 888 was amazing. I Don't Speak Spanish was really funny to me. Rest in peace to XXXTentacion. Up next is, this is 4 albums that occupy separate spots throughout the list. Like Kanye West produced albums, that means Ye, Daytona, Good Kid Mad, or not Good Kid, whoa, Kid See Ghosts, and then Nasir. Those 4, my favorite was Daytona and then Kid See Ghosts. Those 2 were really, really good to me. I think Kanye West's production on it was amazing. But yeah, check out all those. I don't really like the whole 7-song album concept thing. I don't really like that, but these albums were pretty decent, so check them out. Next one is number 23 that's on my list. It's a jazz album by a band, I think it's a British band called The Sons of Kemet. The album is called Your Queen is a Reptile. And it's a fun album. The jazz on there is really upbeat. It's really like driving and bouncing. And I really enjoyed it. It was an unexpected find to me. I just sort of came across it one day and I enjoyed it. Really loved it. I highly suggest it. It's an amazing album. Number 19 on my list is a country album. I don't really listen to country, but it's the album Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves. I just listened to this album today, and I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was fun. I don't listen to country, but for what it was really, really great. And then the last honorable mention, it felt right to do the number 11 spot, and that's In the Wake of O by a rapper named Ozay Moore. That album I just came across. It was a really, really good album. There's a song on it called I'm Good, or something. I think it's I'm Good, and that's the amazing song. It's a good upbeat song. It's a good just happy album. I really enjoyed it. I don't know much of his work previously, but as far as I know, this is a really great album. And so with that, we have the honorable mentions out of the way. Let's get into the list. At my number 10 spot, so my 10th favorite album this year, is an instrumental album called Nobody Has to Know. It's by an artist named Onra. I think he's out of France. I personally really love 80s style music, specifically like a vaporwave sort of style. And this album by Onra is exactly that. It's all instrumental. It's really like 80s and funk filled, and I personally enjoyed it. My favorite track of the album was No Question featuring Pomrod. It's a really fun, it's a really like bass heavy track, and it's really like driven by the 80s. It's a phenomenal track. Great track. Check it out. And number 9 is an album called Apologies in Advance by an artist named Sylvain Lequeux. I don't know any of the artist's previous work, and I've only listened to this album twice, and the reason I've only listened to it twice and it's so high is because both times I listened to it, I started crying. There's a series of skits throughout all of it, as if it's like a anonymous meeting, being a better person and striving for more as a person, and those are amazing. I don't usually like skits on the album, but it was those that really like had me emotional and had me crying, and it was beautiful. It's a beautiful album. I highly suggest it. It's amazing, and I would like to check out more of Sylvain Lequeux's work, so if any of you are familiar with his work, send me some of his other albums. I'm curious to know. Number 8 was the Black Panther soundtrack. I'm a big fan of the Black Panther, and the movie was amazing, and the fact that Kendrick Lamar and a bunch of other people at TDE came together to make this amazing soundtrack, this album for it, was incredible. Like, I couldn't have asked for more from a Black Panther movie than that. My favorite song on it is Seasons, which is featuring Mozzie and Shajava. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's an amazing track. It's beautiful. It's pretty. It's layered. It's very soothing. It's an amazing song. Probably one of my favorite this year, honestly. Number 7 is Cocoa Sugar by a group called Young Fathers. I think they're a European group. Cocoa Sugar caught me off guard at first because the album cover is extremely jarring. It's one of those things like it made my skin crawl. And the music kind of did the same thing for me. It kind of made me uncomfortable. It was really experimental. It was really weird. I love it when music can do that, especially when like I'm sitting there and I feel like just creeped out. Like I can't do that with movies. I hate horror movies, but I love when albums can do that. It is an album that I had no idea what it was. That's Sun Go Nova from Denmark Vesey. It has a lot of like tracks in the beginning with Knowledge and Earl Sweatshirt that are really interesting, and then the rest of the album is all just instrumentals by, I assume, Denmark. And that's a fun album. I know nothing about Denmark. I kind of know Earl Sweatshirt. I don't really know much about Knowledge, but it's just a fun little album. The album art is incredible too. I love the popping yellow and then the contrast with the black. It's an amazing album. Personally, my favorite was Stolot, which is the Knowledge mix. It's earlier in the first half of the album. It's a great album. I think technically it's an EP, but with those other extra songs, it kind of plays like an album. Number 5 is Together Through Time by a group called Twerp. I don't really know much about them. They were introduced to me by a friend last year, and it was just instrumental sort of stuff. Again, kind of along the line of like 80s sort of like video game music. The album that they just released this year, it wasn't just instrumentals, there was words along with it, and it really felt like you were watching like some weird 80s film. And that being said, Phantom Racer, or Rider? I think it's Racer. Phantom Racer was amazing. Like, I've never had so much fun listening to it. It's kind of like Daft Punk and the 80s and then video games all just like combined, and it's a lot of fun. Like smiling there the entire time that I listened to it. It was just fun. It was some of the most fun I've ever had listening to music. 4 is another newer album that I think just came out last week, and that was from Jay-Z and Beyonce, the Carters, called Everything Is Love. A lot of people on Twitter were like going crazy and like bashing this album because they didn't want to hear from Jay-Z and Beyonce after that whole thing last year or 2 years ago with the whole cheating scandal or whatever. You know, I was really impartial to that. I mean, I'm fans of Jay-Z and Beyonce, but I'm not like crazy hard fans of them. So going into this, I didn't really know what to expect, and I came out really pleased actually. I kind of enjoyed hearing, you know, how far they've come since that scandal or whatever, and how much stronger it's made them as like parents and as husband and wife, and just as people in general. My favorite song off there was Boss by far. I've been replaying that constantly. It's one of the catchiest songs I've ever heard. So check out that. You gotta use a Tidal membership though, and that kind of sucks. I'm a big rap person. Most of the albums on here have been rap, but there was an album a friend had showed me by a group called Y Oak called The Louder I Call, The Faster It Runs. That was a phenomenal album. I listened to that a lot while I was in California for a small trip. It's really peaceful, it's really serene, but it has kind of this darker overtone as to whatever like it is following you while you're listening to the album. My favorite track on there, it being kind of having a darker undertone, is You of All People. The intro and then the ending to that kind of have like this weird darkness to them, and then in the middle of the track there's like a bounding thing following you, but it still feels really serene. Check it out, it's interesting. Number 2 was Care For Me by Saba. That was a phenomenal album, especially Busy, because it was a lot of how I was feeling at the time when I was listening to it, and like friends being busy and going places and me just kind of sitting there bored. But my personal favorite track was Calligraphy. I think Calligraphy is just an amazing song. It has an amazing beat. The beat is what really drew me into this one. But I also gotta mention Prom King. The storytelling on that one is incredible. One of my friends compared it to Good Kid Mad City, except it's Saba. It's a great album. Obviously it's number 2, and it would be number 1 had it not been for this very special project I think is like just incredible. 1 is Endless by Frank Ocean. Technically the album came out in 2016. It was a visual album, and it was great as is. Then last year he released it and said he was going to put it on VHS, and there was going to be vinyl as well, and then it didn't come to us all until this year. It sounds so much purer and so much more beautiful. Specifically the song In Here Somewhere, which is my favorite, although I don't think it's the best song on the album, it's my favorite. It just sounds so light and airy, and like it just sounds like everything is surrounding you. Like Frank Ocean's voice and everything that like he's making is just surrounding you, like you're in his own world. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But I think the best song on it is Mitsubishi Sony, which is like this really like high key, high energy, beautiful closer, and all around the album is just an amazing piece of art. And I only put it on this year's list because that's when I received it, and I think the CDQ or the vinyl quality of it is so much better than the visual album. And don't get me wrong, you can't separate the two. The visual album is its own art entirely, and it's an amazing visual album. I highly suggest trying to track down and listen to Endless. But listen to all these albums. They're all fantastic albums. Something else I forgot to mention was Joey Badass's 1999, which was finally put on Spotify. That's fun too, even though it came out years ago. But that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Check out all of this music. Hopefully next week I'll be able to show some of the progress for the short film. So with that, thank you for watching. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you when I see you.